Breaking news involving Toronto Maple has just been revealed, taking everyone by surprise. Our journalists have managed to obtain this valuable information. However, before we discuss the details of the news, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel, aiming to soon surpass the number of subscribers of Boston Bruins. With everyone's cooperation, we aim to become the leading news channel. Editado. We're nearing the midpoint of August. Astonishingly, the Leafs took action this week to bolster their goaltending depth within the organization, sending a clear message from Brad Treliving that he's actively engaged and not simply on vacation. While one could draw parallels between the current moves by the Leafs GM and those of the former GM this week, I prefer to focus on looking ahead and not dwelling on the Penguins' actions. For those who held Kyle Dubas in high regard, it's important to acknowledge that while he was here, the results didn't align with expectations, and change was inevitable. Now, let's shift our attention to some other stray thoughts. Matthews' contract. The Leafs still have 11 months to finalize a deal for Matthews, and Auston will be gearing up in a Leafs jersey at the start of the season. So, why rush or become overly concerned? Negotiations naturally require time, don't they? It appears that the initial timeline for Auston Matthews and the goal of securing a contract before training camp might be evolving. Whether orchestrated by Treliving or Dubas, the prevailing belief was that by July 1st, there would be an announcement confirming Auston Matthews' extended tenure with the Leafs during the prime of his career. Perhaps, with the change in GM, this goal became more ambitious, but here we are in the middle of August with no news on that front. Instead, there's considerable chatter about William Nylander, aligning with Louis Gross's tendency to negotiate through media avenues. In contrast, the previous Matthews signing happened suddenly, without the public exchange of contract figures. In this case, silence could indeed signify positivity. The concern with Matthews lies in the fact that although silence could be encouraging, it doesn't alleviate worries about potential uncertainties. The array of prominent American markets, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, and nearby southwestern markets, Vegas and Arizona, that could viably accommodate Matthews contract-wise might become a lingering distraction throughout the season. I, for one, would rather not spend the period leading up to the trade deadline writing about the possibility of losing Auston Matthews without compensation. However, if he remains unsigned, this might become a recurring theme in our content plan. Regarding Matthews, it might be prudent for the Leafs to determine the figure they deem appropriate for his value, and then perhaps add an extra $1 million to maintain the peace of mind of Toronto sports fans. If even that fails to seal the deal, it's a reminder that contracts are rarely as straightforward as they appear. Standard player contracts. Continuing with the contract theme, the Leafs currently occupy 47 standard player contracts out of the maximum 50 following the addition of Martin Jones. If Easton Cowan and Fraser Minton don't make the Leafs roster out of training camp, spoiler, they won't, their contracts will slide. Given the Leafs' present circumstance of having 3 available spots and 0 cap space, I find myself advocating for the least contentious option, not utilizing those spots. Last year, the Leafs found themselves in a bind when goaltending injuries piled up, and they were at 49 contracts, intending to allocate one for Matthew Knies or to maintain flexibility. However, that plan fell apart, and they scrambled to sign Keith Petruzzelli and mutually terminated a contract with Axel Rindel to regain the necessary maneuvering space. Throughout the year, every Leafs deal hinged on the requirement that they exchanged players as much as they were acquiring or possibly sent out even more. While I'm not suggesting we lament the departure of Pavel Gogolev, there's undoubtedly merit in having roster flexibility instead of burdening the Marlies with players on NHL contracts. Last year, it seemed the Leafs anticipated losing some players to waivers post-training camp to free up roster spots, but that didn't come to fruition. This scenario could manifest this year with the likes of Connor Timmins, Dylan Gambrell, Martin Jones, and William Lejessen, all significant players potentially requiring waivers. However, historical data indicates that most players will likely clear waivers, and having 3 spaces for roster flexibility seems optimal, considering the Marlies appear to have a robust AHL roster without additional acquisitions. So, fans, what is your perception of this news? Are you aligned with it or do you have a different view? Share your opinion in the comments section. This plays a crucial role in helping our beloved team understand your feelings. Stay tuned, as I will be back soon with more updates.